Hello and welcome back to the Orlando Adventures podcast. I'm your host, Russ, and today we have the return of a brilliant guest. I have got Leigh from A Brit Travels. Welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me on again, Russ. We had a great time last time. I think you had to cut out a lot of stuff because we went off on a few tangents, but
we did.
It was a lot of fun, so I'm happy to be back. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's honestly, it's my pleasure. And I love talking to you on the podcast, but also I genuinely, I regard you as a mate. I really do, because we have a lot of chats on Instagram. I love getting into your content. You're a great guy, and it's honestly, it's episodes like this that make this, in my opinion, like worth it, because it's such a chilled experience. I get to talk with a mate about something we both love.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to know. And you know, yeah, we do. We chat like all the time, right? Like just chatting about just random stuff. Yeah. Not just about the theme parks, not just about Orlando, about like life and everything. And, you know, I'm more than happy to have anybody just reach out and talk about that kind of stuff with me. And I can bite your ear about it and just talk. So
I mean, if it's any testament of how much we can talk, we were meant to have started recording this half an hour ago. And we've talked for half an hour before we've even done it. So I love it.
Maybe we should hit record. Maybe we should do that, right?
Yeah. And like, obviously I love talking about all things Orlando, you do as well, but I saw a video of yours, and I think we might have discussed this kind of back in our first episode, but I saw a video of yours a while back, and it was Universal Studios Beijing, and it really intrigued me. And when I created the And Beyond series, I created it with this in mind. This was exactly the kind of thing that I wanted to talk about on the And Beyond episodes. So we are going to go into Universal Studios Beijing. And when was it you actually went to Beijing then?
We went to Beijing back in April, part of a bit of a wider trip. We had planned to go to China pre-Blit. That was the first holiday that gets cancelled when everything happens. But actually, Universal Studios Beijing wasn't open at that time. It was a pipeline dream of Universal. They were kind of like, you know, they'd been building it, but it didn't actually open until 2021, just early days opening. So we went back in April. We were there. We went to Shanghai Disney as well, then took a train, which is really easy to do. The train system in China is absolutely fantastic, from Shanghai to Beijing. And then we spent a few days at Universal Studios Beijing.
Fantastic. And what was it that kind of made you want to go there then? Was it just like your love of Universal in Orlando? Was it that, or was there something else as well that kind of drew you to this park?
For me, it was kind of a bit of everything, really. Like, fun fact, my first Universal park was not Orlando. It was Universal Studios Japan back in 2016, I think I went there.
Yeah.
And that kind of like kicked off this weird obsession that we all have listening to these episodes, watching these videos, whatever. You know, we all have this weird obsession with these theme parks, be it Disney, be it Universal. And for me, I think it's really interesting to see how they change around the world. Disney changes, each of the park changes. A lot of your listeners, a lot of my viewers, you know, we would have been to Orlando, to Disney World, but they also would have done Disneyland Paris as well, right? And you can see the differences there. And, you know, obviously you've got a lot of guests, and I think you've done a couple of the And Beyond episodes for Disneyland Paris. So there is such a love there for these parks. But I think the Asian parks, they have a lot of love that side of the world.
Yeah.
But not a lot of love from us in the West as visitors go there. I think, you know, Japan's starting to creep up there for people. And, you know, I've got a lot of people that I'm talking to on Instagram at the moment that I'm seeing around that are going to Japan, but not a lot of people going to China. And I understand it, but I would encourage you to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because obviously when we get into this park, then there might be a justification to why you'd want to go. I mean, ultimately we're doing an episode on this park, So you must be a little bit of a fan of the park.
Yeah,
I'd like to think so.
I would hope so. When this comes out, obviously we've recently been to Japan, and those videos are all going to come out. So short of, I'd already been to Universal Studios Japan anyway, but it's obviously changed since 2016. But short of Universal Studios Singapore, which isn't fully owned by Universal, it's owned by Genting Casinos, I've been to all of the Universal parks, and I think Universal Studios Beijing is my favorite studios park.
Yeah.
Caveat there on the studios part of it, because I love Islands of Adventure. So,
yeah.
I think we all love Islands of Adventure, right? With Hagrid's and Velocicoaster and, Doctor Doom, apparently.
Yeah. I've got a little following going here.
You've got to follow him, mate. You really do. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's my favorite studios park because you can see where they've learnt their lessons.
Yeah, I like that. And obviously it being a fairly new park as well is unique. And to be able to go to a new park, and a lot of us are going to do that next year with Epic Universe. But I suppose for yourself, I assume it was quite a big draw. That this park is fairly new, it's fresh, it's you're going to go in there and it's sparkly new, and like you said, that they basically learned from not mistakes, but potentially that they've learned their lessons from other parks around the world, and hopefully they adapt their new park to this.
Yeah, I think like you can see it just as soon as you walk into the park, and we'll get into some of the details of it, but walking down, well, it's production central, isn't it, and into Minion Land in Florida, and then off into Hollywood. But you walk in there in Universal Studios Beijing, and the streets are 50% wider, and that they're looking to accommodate those larger crowds that the Chinese market has, and the market of the East as a whole has. Yeah, there's some weird language barriers, of course, but there's also some weird language barriers when you get to Disneyland Paris as well, right? So long as you've got access to translate app, you can't use Google because you can. You just need to be able to circumvent the Chinese Wi-Fi. But so long as you can translate stuff, you'll be fine there. And I think having those wider paths, having everything just being a little bit bigger, you can see the lessons they've learned. Walking around islands, there's so many bottlenecks going over bridges and stuff like that. You walk through that section of Toon Lagoon that goes into Skull Island area, on Skull Island, and it gets so congested there. That just doesn't happen in Beijing because they've got the space.
Yeah, which is good, and it's learning from those potentially are mistakes, because something like Skull Island is obviously a newer attraction. I mean, just put a bit more thought and just make it a bit wider. But I suppose getting into Beijing a bit more, where is it you actually stayed then? What was the hotel, resort, or accommodation you stayed at?
So I kind of give you a bit of an overview of the resort as a whole to preclude that. You've got Universal Studios Beijing, the park. You've got a small city walk, and then you've got two hotels. Now, one of those is the Nuo, I think it's pronounced Nuo, N-U-O, and it's a really posh Eastern vibe to that hotel. And then you've also got the Universal Studios Grand Hotel, and the Universal Studios Grand Hotel is over the entrance to the park. It is the entrance to the park. Think, again, we're talking about Disneyland Paris a lot here. Think Disneyland Paris with their Disneyland Hotel. That's how it is. So you walk under the hotel, and that's where you get into the park. So Becky and I, we were fortunate that we actually managed to stay at both of those resorts. We stayed 2 nights at the Universal Studios Grand. We had a theme park view room, so we were on the 8th floor or something silly like that, forgetting slightly, but we were looking straight down Hollywood, and we could see the parade come out of the parade room. Perfect view. We could see, we'll get into the lands in a minute, but we could see Jurassic World over in the Wizarding World. And it also meant that you had direct entrance to the park. You just came down a set of stairs and you beat everybody else into the park. So you had your own dedicated entrance and and the like. The other hotel, the Nuo Hotel, Nuo, however it's pronounced, that is a little bit further away. But when I say a little bit further away, I mean a 5-minute walk. It is to the park than the Hard Rock Hotel is in Orlando.
Nice.
Right? Like it is so close, and you also then use the same dedicated entrance as the Universal Studios Grand Hotel. So you're so close, and it's such a, they have space, but it's a compact resort in that sense, because they've thought, right, we've got these two hotels that are right there, and then we're going to build from there in the future. And like I said, you've got City Walk as well, which is kind of a nice to have. But yeah, we stayed at both of those resorts, and they're both fantastic resorts. The Universal Studios Grand Hotel is the first Universal themed hotel. What they mean by that is, like, they've taken their Universal roots with using their films to theme the hotel. So the room we stayed in, I think, was Apollo 13 themed.
Oh.
They had a picture of, I think it was like Tom Hanks on the wall or something, watching me sleep or whatever, you know. As you do. I wouldn't complain, but it's good to see, because Universal don't do that kind of level of theming that often.
No, they definitely don't. Yeah.
You know, the Hard Rock is the Hard Rock. It's themed to the Hard Rock. Cabana Bay is like the retro theme. Portofino's Italy. But I love films, and I love Universal films. So having a Universal themed hotel is really cool.
Yeah, love it. It sounds wicked. It really, really does. And like you said, just to have a themed hotel to this park is quite special. It really is. And I suppose if we were to get into the actual park itself, then do you reckon we should do like a brief outline of like the lands and attractions of this park, just to kind of give us a bit of a lay of the land, so to speak?
Yeah, let's go with that. And I think I'll go sort of clockwise around the park from the entrance.
And just before that, I suppose just before that, is this one park? Because obviously if we're talking Orlando, we're used to Universal Studios and Islands. Is this basically a one hybrid park? It
is, yeah. So from everything I've read online, the future plan is to be essentially an Orlando style resort, but for the time being, it is just one park. It is a Studios park.
Yeah.
But it's got, and like we said, we'll get into the lands, but it's got Jurassic Park in there. It's got the Wizarding World Hogsmeade in there. So it's a weird hybrid amalgamation of Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure, with a few different rides in there as well.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. So like you said, if we do a clockwise around the park with a brief outline of what there is.
Yeah, so obviously, as with all of the studio parks, you walk in, you've got Hollywood, and you've got all your typical Schwab's Pharmacy, you've got the Pantages Theatre down the end as well. And, you know, as it would be at Studios Florida, the Pantages doesn't have the horror makeup show. It's got a walk-through attraction called Lights, Camera, Action, which is basically them setting up how they would film a disaster scene. So it's taking us through a typhoon in the city. Cool Easter egg in that. It's actually presented by Steven Spielberg. So if you've been on E.T., you get that, hello, I'm Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
And 35 years later, he's walking into Lights, Camera, Action. Hello, I'm Steven Spielberg. And it's so... like, if you love Studios Florida, this is an amazing attraction as well. It's something that they used to do in studios. I think you had like Backdraft and Twister and those kind of things back in the day, but they're all going in favor of like actual rides now, which, for better or worse, you know, it depends what you want. You don't want to be doing this kind of ride after a long day on your feet because you can't sit down, but it's good because it's constantly cycling, and it's always a 5 or 10 minute wait. So as we come out of Hollywood, you go around, and you've got shows in here as well. I'll get into the shows later on, but you go through and you've got Transformers Metro Base. That's the next land. Obviously, Transformers is in Studios Florida. You've got Transformers Battle for the Allspark. That ride is here, but you've also got something called the Decepticoaster. And you've got Bumblebee's Boogie, I think it's called. The Decepticoaster is a clone of the Incredible Hulk. you know, beat for beat, it is exactly the same. Obviously, completely changed the theme. The harnesses are also changed, so it doesn't hurt in any way, shape, or form. And it's 10 years newer track, so you know it's just really comfortable to ride. It's a night and day difference. Transformers is the same, and then Bumblebee's Boogie is like a teacups ride that's got a large animatronic of Bumblebee in the middle, directing things with music, which is, you know, it's a simple ride, but done really effectively. And the land as a whole just really gels together well. Transformers makes for a good land.
Definitely.
You know, so Transformers feels out of place in Studios Florida because it's just kind of plonked in the middle.
It's very kind of random because everything around it is quite nicely themed to like kind of retro studios a bit, isn't it? And then you've just got Transformers and this big block of a building in the middle of the park. Yeah, so I agree. I like the ride, don't get me wrong, but like in terms of where it is and what it is, it is quite random.
Yeah, so Metro Base, Transformers Metro Base just kind of feels like a cohesive land, you know? It's really good. There's a land that's kind of in the middle that we kind of bypassed a little bit there, and that's Jurassic World Isla Nublar. Obviously, Islands of Adventure has Jurassic Park. This has Jurassic World. Every other Studios park around the world has Jurassic Park River Adventure or Jurassic World River Adventure. This doesn't. This has got something called Jurassic World Adventure, and I would say it's arguably one of the best dark rides in the world.
Yeah.
And that
this was the one thing that like really caught my attention. And I think we might have even spoke about it in our first episode actually.
Yeah, I think we did, and I would hang my hat on that. And you know, I would travel to Universal Studios Beijing just for that ride. So that's saying a lot, you know. Obviously, it's not as simple as that because it's a couple of £1,000 to do that, but you know, it is a really good ride. It's kind of a hybrid between, like we said about Transformers and The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, but also Dinosaur at Disney's Animal Kingdom, that kind of vehicle that moves around like that.
Yeah,
it is in typical Universal fashion semi-screen heavy, but it does have a lot of animatronic figures, and they are insane animatronic figures. There is a scene, and obviously we do have videos for this on our YouTube channel, so you can obviously go and check those out. There is a scene where a dinosaur actually chases you, and it's a full-size dinosaur. You're going backwards, and a T-Rex is running at you, which is the most, you know, insane experience you can have. And then, you know, a few beats later, you've got the T-Rex and the Indominus Rex, I think it was called, from Jurassic World, fighting in that scene from the first Jurassic World film. And these are full-size dinosaurs that are fighting there and then. And
that's cool.
You're walking into the middle or driving into the middle of this fight, and every scene of this ride hits. You know, there's a bunch of animatronics. You're in a really cool ride vehicle. The queue is cool. You know, it just works. The land has got like 3 or 4 restaurants as well, and then you've got something called Jurassic Flyers, which is it's tricky to describe. Think Pterodon Flyers on steroids. You know, if you haven't got a kid or you can't steal a kid to ride Pterodon Flyers, Jurassic Flyers is the answer to that. It's you sit 4 in a seat as if you're doing something like the Incredible Hulk, but the ride vehicle spins around. And so it can take you to face certain show scenes, and you go through the mountain of Isla Nublar, you go behind waterfalls and stuff like that. You get some amazing views of Universal Studios Beijing, Jurassic World, and then you get some really cool G's in there as well because it's a roller coaster, and it gets some insane weights, just like the Jurassic World Adventure ride. But yeah, such a fantastic little roller coaster that they just kind of tacked on in there.
It sounds good. I mean, anyone who's a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World fan, it sounds like this section of the park like is perfect. It sounds like they've kind of like taken and what we were saying a little bit earlier with kind of like learning from previous parks and stuff, and gone, you know what, animatronics for a start. Let's do animatronics because dinosaurs, but let's do them like the level that we can do them. We can do them at this top tier, so let's do it, and let's have a different type of ride as well in the Flyers kind of ride. So I love the sound of it. It sounds absolutely wicked. It really does.
Yeah, and it's a good change as well, because I think a lot of people have done obviously Orlando. You know, if you're listening to the podcast here, you've probably done Orlando or you're planning to do Orlando.
I expect so.
But there's a lot of people that have done, you know, Hollywood as well, Universal Studios Hollywood, and they've got the same river adventure ride, but it's themed to Jurassic World there. So
yeah,
there's a few changes, but I think it's good for parks to have different rides because it gives you a reason to go to them. I get that it kind of, you know, puts these rides behind a very large paywall, which is unfortunate because there's, you know, some people that aren't going to have the possibility to go to these parks or don't want to go to these parks, but it's good to have these different attractions, right?
Yeah, sounds great. What's the next little land or kind of area of this park then?
So the next little land is very much a weird one, and it's one that I do think would work very well in Florida, and that is Kung Fu Panda, the Land of Awesomeness, which is such a great name in its own right. But the reason I think it would work very well in Florida is because the entire land is inside. They've built this show building that, you know, I can't even begin to explain how big this show building is.
Yeah.
Then it's like an entire town in there, like a Kung Fu Panda themed town. It's a kids land, but you've got the typical, you know, flat rides, the spinning flat rides. You've also got this really awesome boat ride in there, and Universal don't do a lot of boat rides, so this was great to see. Legend of the Dragon Warrior, it's called, and it's about Poe getting his powers basically and becoming the Kung Fu master. And it's a really cute boat ride. It goes on for about 8 to 10 minutes, but having the whole land inside is fantastic because it means that whatever the weather, those rides aren't going to go down. I think we mentioned it on the previous podcast, you know, about Islands of Adventure. It's one of those parks that's absolutely fantastic. It's got so many outdoor rides that as soon as lightning comes along or it's raining or whatever, the entire park's at a standstill, right? So having the Land of Awesomeness where everything's inside, they can keep the temperature even, they can control the lighting, and that's something that is really special in that land as well. The whole town comes alive through lighting and sound package that they use there. That it's just a really cute land that isn't actually that small.
Yeah,
I mean, inside a show building.
I mean, I've watched your Beijing episode. It's a fantastic episode. So, but to be fair, I know you touched it, but like for anyone who wants to see this park, like absolutely check this video out because it is spot on. And I remember seeing this section of the park, and it like you said, like you can't justify how big this area is. It is massive. It is absolutely amazing. And like you said, to have this facility of being able to have stuff indoors as well is such a great idea. It looks fantastic, and I like that it's unique to this park. I mean, there was quite a big food court there as well. That was like that reminded me of Springfield a little bit. That kind of setup.
It is, yeah, and you had like 2 or 3 little restaurants in this land. That's one thing that's really good about Universal Studios Beijing. It's got like 2 or 3 restaurants per land.
Nice.
You know, so whatever you fancy, you can get something that you're probably going to like. Granted, Kung Fu Panda Land is going to be more tailored, like the palette there is going to be more tailored to the east with noodles, with Chinese food, whatever. But the rest of the park, there's kind of something for everybody in one of the restaurants at least. But yeah, having that little food court style thing with 3 or 4 items on each of the menus, it allows you that kind of, oh, what do I fancy? Do I fancy some dumplings from there? Do I fancy some noodles from there? You know, and pick a mix kind of Chinese food, which is what we love to do, right? We get some chicken balls, we get some spring rolls, and some crispy chili beef or something, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, it really is. It's It's fantastic.
So what's that's this area, the part there, the kind of Kung Fu Panda area. What's the next part as we go around the park then?
So the next one that you've got is a bit of a weird one, actually. It's kind of a land, but not quite a land, and it's Waterworld, based off the, I don't know when it came out, 90s or 80s or something like that, Kevin Costner film. Now they've got the show Waterworld at Universal Studios Hollywood. They've got it at Universal Studios Japan, and that is the same show here. It's like a stunt spectacular show, basically, on water. The whole premise of Waterworld is that the ice caps have melted, the water levels have risen and flooded the entire world. Everybody lives on floating islands, basically.
Yeah.
They've made that. But because of that, there's this kind of conflict between people for resources, and this show plays that out. The difference here between having Waterworld in Beijing and Hollywood and Japan is they built a kind of mini land around it. So you, like I said before, you've got a restaurant there as well.
Yeah.
A little courtyard area before the show. And the show itself has like an insane amount of capacity, the seating. It seats something like 2,000 people. I don't know.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it is crowded. And we went on probably one of the busiest weekends that we could possibly go. So we had to queue sort of 30 minutes or so before. But having a whole kind of land theme to Waterworld was a nice touch, rather than just feeling like it's a show that they've plonked on side, you know? And it fits the area really well. So that's the next one. Like I said, they've got a little restaurant there as well that has 5 or 6 items, but it's a cool area. So yeah,
cool. Many other lands in the park as well.
Yeah, the next big one, we've got 2 more lands. The next big one is one that everybody knows and everybody kind of loves, is the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. It wouldn't be a Universal Park without some form of Wizarding World nowadays, right?
Absolutely. Is this just like a carbon copy of Hogsmeade in Iowa, or is it slightly different there?
So it's 95% the same.
Yeah.
Well, let's dial that down a bit. It's 75% the same because they haven't got Hagrid's yet.
Okay. Yeah. Fair.
So where Hagrid's is a bricked up wall. The entrance to Hagrid's is a bricked up wall. The lockers for Hagrid, that's a shop themed to like platform 9 3/4. It's quite a cute little shop. And like I said at the top, like Universal kind of learnt their lessons here. So the pathways are slightly wider. I think there's a weird contract in place. JK has said we need it to be as authentic as possible, but they've managed to like go with the realm of like making it a little bit bigger, so you're not getting completely crowded in there. There's a wall in Orlando that's like plonked right in the middle of Hogsmeade that everybody sits on. That's not there, so that frees up a lot of space. And then it's got like a really cool walkway to get there, where you go through the stone circle that Malfoy gets punched by Hermione in the 3rd film. You've got that stone circle, but the rides are the same. So you have Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, you have Flight of the Hippogriff. They are both carbon copies, which, for better or worse, there's an extra show scene in Forbidden Journey that I think is in Orlando, but it isn't utilized, with extra Death Eaters and whatnot. And the ride vehicle's not as restrictive, so it's not completely up against your face. You can kind of see to the left and right, so that helps with motion sickness a little bit.
Yeah.
The only caveat, and I'm a stickler for this, the show building is awful because it can be seen from every entrance. So you've got this beautiful castle, you've got the Hogwarts castle, and then an ugly show building next to it. So
I got you. Whereas I suppose like Iowa, they've managed to tuck it so that basically whatever angle you're at, you can't really see it.
Yeah, they've done a pretty good job, and it's had like 10 years or so to blend in at Islands of Adventure as well, with the tree growth and stuff. So that's one of the things that's like a little bit frustrating of having a new park. They haven't had the time for all those trees to grow in, but it's also slightly frustrating that they've just built a brand new park, themed the show building a little bit, because you walk in from Waterworld and you can see the show building straight away before you see the castle. And
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah,
you've got to be really creative with how you take your pictures and where you take them. The other thing that is actually unique to this area is you've got Black Lake, so you can take pictures on the Black Lake with nice reflection in front of it, and you've got the Hogwarts Castle sort of like off in the distance in the background, like on the hill. So you can get some fantastic shots there, along with everybody else that is trying to get the same one. So elbows at the ready.
indeed. Cool. That's Hogsmeade then.
Yeah, the final land is one that is relatively new to Universal Studios Florida, and that's Minion Land. This has got the record of being the biggest Minion Land in the world. I don't know if that's
is that a good thing?
Record that Guinness is going for or not, but it's an interesting land. They've got Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem, I think it's called, the bog standard one that we've got in Universal Studios Florida. The ride is beat for beat exactly the same. You've also got something called Super Silly Funland, which is a couple of flat rides, a roller coaster, like a kiddie coaster and a spinning hub and spoke like Dumbo.
Yeah.
Or Kang and Kudos's Twirl and Hurl, the same kind of ride as that. That's indoors again, so that's a bit of the theme here, is a lot of stuff is indoors because the temperatures can fluctuate massively in Beijing.
Yeah.
And the land is really well themed. You've got so many little minion characters around. You've got a little water area where you've got minions swimming, they're laying, sunbathing on Gru's submarine. The whole area looks really good. You've got a restaurant that's themed to the villains, like the Vicious Six.
Yeah.
But it works really well as a land. The rides, not the best, but aesthetically, it looks fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, and for the audience, they're probably trying to hit. Being a younger audience, it's probably still fantastic, I'm sure. And Minions and Despicable Me seems to be very popular still. That's why they keep churning them out. But yeah, I mean, this sounds like a fun park. This sounds good, and for a Universal Studios fan such as myself who hasn't been there, it sounds exciting that you've got like kind of this hybrid park. I like the idea of it. Size wise, how does this compare to like studios?
Compared to studios, I mean, I'd say it's probably 2 to 3 times the size of studios park.
Really?
It's a big park. When we were there, because it was so busy, it was such a busy time of year, they've actually built it to handle those crowds as well. So they've got backstage walkways that they just open these doors and you can just avoid lands entirely if you want. Think of like the bridge that avoids the Wizarding World from Lost Continent to Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
that thing. And they can just open these up and you can just completely avoid something like the Wizarding World. And it kind of works in like a bit of a circle, a little bit like Islands of Adventure, that you can kind of walk around the lake. You can go to the separate, you can go to the Wizarding World, which is the tack on land at IOA, or you can kind of use that pathway to go through Jurassic Park. I'd say it's on a similar size currently to Islands of Adventure, possibly a little bit bigger, but it doesn't feel as though it's as big a chore to walk around it as Islands can at some point.
Yeah, just a bit more easy to negotiate the actual park, like you're saying, with having like wider pathways and things like that. That's it's certainly interesting, and certainly something that a lot of parks seem to do around the world outside of Orlando. Orlando obviously would try to, they try to kind of cram it in, and we as the audience want more, so they keep having to find room to stick something in there. We talked about like Kong, for example. There wasn't a lot of room there, but they've put a ride there, so they've crammed it in an area, whereas these feel a lot more purpose built, I would have said.
Yeah, and like we said, they've learned from their lessons. They've gone and said, look, the Wizarding World is insanely busy. We know it's going to be insanely busy. How do we expand this but still keep it feeling like the Wizarding World? Let's take that wall out. Let's move Ollivanders from this section to this section and make it so we've got a queue space that's not, taking up loads of the walkways in Hogsmeade. So they thought about space and they thought about expansion and how they can do that, whereas I think Islands and studios, they're kind of running out of space a little bit, hence we're getting Epic Universe. So
Yeah.
Thank you for lack of space. I'm happy to go to Epic Universe, but it's just a weird change, right?
Yeah, and we kind of touched on the food options, and I'm intrigued by this because I'll be absolutely honest with you. Like, I think a lot of people don't or haven't looked at these parks in Asia because they're scared of the food options. And I think it seems to be a big thing. How did you find the food options were like kind of compared to Orlando? I don't expect it to all be like chicken tenders and chips, but like, how did you find it compared?
Yeah, I mean, like, so I'm not one of the people that is a fussy eater, and it's not a problem if you are a fussy eater. We all like what we like. My favorite dish is chili con carne, and I could eat that every single day. But the menus are slightly different, of course, but you can get those options still. Not something to be scared about, particularly in Disney and Universal as well. The parks are still catering to other audiences. They're not just catering to the Asian market, because there's only a finite amount of people on that side of the world, and they want to start marketing to us in the West as well. So you can get your tenders, you can get your chips. Yeah, you've got weird things mixed in there. You've got, rice dishes that we don't have really in Orlando. You've got spicier curries and ramen bowls and dumplings and things like that. But you'll also have burgers and chips on the menu, right?
Yeah.
So they also are really good. Disney is better than Universal at posting all of the menus for all of their restaurants online, including options. So you can sit down. Becky and I, we sat down before going to Disney Shanghai. We sat down and we made a list of all of the snacks we wanted to try, and we ticked those off like a bucket list of snacks, right?
Nice.
So you can do that for these parks, and it's really accessible. The other thing as well, the food is cheap.
Right.
It is really cheap. We touch on it in the first or second video in the Beijing series there. We got 2 ice creams and a bottle of Coke, and it cost us £8.
You only get one of them.
What is a Mickey premium bar now is like $6, $6.50 or something stupid.
Yeah.
A bottle of Coke is the same price.
Yeah, literally.
So you've got, what's that, like $18 altogether?
Yeah, literally double the price. Yeah.
It's double the price. T-shirts are $15 to $20, £15 to £20 even.
Yeah.
It is cheap. The whole experience there is cheap. We went at a busy time of year. We went in a public holiday, and our theme park view room at Universal Studios Grand was like £400 or something stupid like that for 2. Like, you imagine getting a theme park view room at Aventura or something, and you're talking £400 for one night. I
mean, literally, I'm sure people have looked at Helios, and is that not pretty much the kind of money we're looking at?
I think it's £500 a night for a theme park view room at Helios.
Yeah,
something like that. When I looked at it the other day. So yeah, these parks are cheap. They've got the same options. They've got a wider palette than Orlando has for food options. But if you're nervous about what food to eat, there's going to be nuggets and chips. There's going to be burger chips. You might get a dish where you've got rice on it. I think rice is one of those things that's fairly accessible to most people if it's like plain rice rather than spicy rice or something. But there's certainly options for everybody.
Yeah, sounds good. I suppose you touched on kind of like the experience, and how do you find that like Universal Studios Beijing compares to Orlando? Then is it a similar experience to? And I would assume it's not, because from my opinion of what you've been saying and what I've watched on your videos, this is a hybrid park, and there is stuff that Orlando doesn't have. So does it feel unique to you? Did this feel like its own park?
Yeah, I think it did. It felt very. It felt weirdly unique, but weirdly the same, right? So you're walking along. It's very hard to put your finger on it. You walk through Hollywood, and it feels like you're walking through Hollywood. The difference being that they put a roof on Hollywood here that we don't have in Studios, Florida. So you've got that. You've got you walk through Minion Land, you see the minions, and it kind of like, you know, brings I don't know, nostalgia maybe is the right word. I don't know, just that familiar feeling, right?
Yeah.
Having the lagoon and stuff like that, it has an air of familiarity to it whilst being different, and I think it plays that card very well on the uniqueness. It's a strange park because it is that kind of hybrid of the two.
Yeah.
You know, you round a corner and you're in Jurassic World, where and that's so different.
I suppose it wouldn't feel right for us to be 1 minute in Minions. And it was just because I suppose from our point of view, we know Orlando so well. You expect to go from anything Minions and Despicable Me potentially like onto a separate part of the park that isn't Jurassic Park or Jurassic Park, for example. Yeah,
it's very strange to do that. You know, there's that familiarity in like having the Wizarding World that barely looks any different, right?
Yeah.
You know, but then you've got Transformers that is completely different. You've got Jurassic World, which is completely different. Kung Fu Panda, which doesn't exist anywhere else. Minion Land is a full fleshed out Minion Land. So it works really well in that sense to grip you but not feel the same.
Yeah, I like it. How many days did you actually do in this park?
We did 2 full days. Park opens at 10 a.m. I think. We had early entry, so we got in at around 9 o'clock. It closes at 8 or 9. I think if you're there at a quiet period, 2 days is kind of okay, but I would say that to do it leisurely and really enjoy it, try some of the food, sit in the restaurants, and, you know, have the experience, 3 to 4 days would be my preferred.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I was going to go back, I'd probably do at least 3 days there.
Yeah, just to kind of soak it all in. And I appreciate that again, and I'm doing the comparison thing here, but like we could go to Studios and bang Studios out in a day quite comfortably, but it's because we've done it a lot. Like so you're not having to experience all these things for like the first time. But you're saying if you're going to do this for the first time, you like to really soak it in 3 to 4 days.
Yeah, I think so, because, you know, like in Transformers, we didn't go in any of the food options, like in the restaurants. In Jurassic World, we didn't really go in any of the restaurants. We went in one to grab a snack, and that was kind of it. Wizarding World, obviously, like I did Forbidden Journey on single rider, but we didn't do Flight of the Hippogriff. You know, we didn't do Battle for the Allspark in Transformers. You know, there's rides that we didn't do.
Yeah,
we didn't do them because we've done them.
Yeah, so they didn't feel like a priority to.
They didn't feel like a priority, and I think if you're comfortable still wanting to do those rides, like I've done Forbidden Journey probably 20 times at this point, right? And don't get me wrong, I love the ride.
Yeah,
it does make me feel a little bit queasy towards the end of it. So I'm like, I can kind of miss Forbidden Journey. I can kind of miss Transformers. Let's focus on doing like Jurassic World Adventure. Let's do Jurassic Flyers, you know, let's do the Kung Fu Panda boat ride, those kind of things, and the Despicable Me flat rides that don't exist anywhere else. Whereas I think if you want to do all of those rides and you really want to experience the park, I think you need 3 days to really just kind of soak everything in and enjoy it.
Nice, good shout. And I suppose talking about rides, then we. At kind of the end, or it's not quite the end, but at the end of every episode, normally I do my kind of main 5 questions, and I've mixed them up a little bit for this episode. But the one that I always have, favorite ride. What was your favorite ride at Universal Studios Beijing?
I mean, I said it was one of the best dark rides in the world, right? So if I didn't say Jurassic World Adventure, then there'd be something wrong there. It really was such an incredible ride, and I would encourage anybody, even if you don't watch my video, like go and watch someone's video on Jurassic World Adventure, because it just is such an insane ride.
With this, I was just you literally just about to say about the animatronics, and this is what gripes me a little bit about Hagrid's, and this is the only thing, and I've said this quite a lot. They can do animatronics at this level in a Universal Studios park at like the scale and just the look of it, and then I go to Hagrid's and there's that blast-ended screw on a turntable.
Yeah,
it winds me up. It really does. It irritates me because I'm like, how can you do it so good somewhere else and then like just kind of like half-ass it? Let's be honest.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I think they're getting a lot better. And I mean, there's a video that came out as we're recording this. It came out a few days ago of Universal Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein experiment.
Yeah.
At Epic Universe in the new Universal Monsters Dark Universe land. They've got 14 animatronics in there that look like the most insane animatronics that you will ever see. There's a scene where they look amazing, right? And there's a scene where Wolfman like reaches down and claws at you. I think that's what they're going for in the ride there. And I am blown away by these animatronics. And you're right, like you look at these compared to Hagrid's, and you're like, Hagrid's, come on.
I mean, even Jurassic Park River Adventure. I know that like they're old, but like surely...
the dinosaur has the doors open, and it's just his neck that moves, and it looks like it's kind of like his neck's broken or something.
Yeah, I like this is it. And I know that 20 years ago it was brilliant, but I'm like, how can you have something this good and then have something like that in Orlando? I'm like,
yeah. I think it is getting better. I think it is getting better, and once Epic opens, we'll see, you know, the technology advancements that Universal's made, and you'll see how elements of this park and
will come across a bit, yeah,
how they've learned their lessons once again from building Beijing, and how that's going to come into Epic. I mean, the only real frustrating thing for me about it, outside of the animatronics, is I look at the rides that they were developing for Beijing, and then I look at Minion Blast in Universal Studios Florida, and I think to myself, we got shafted there with Minion Blast. I love the ride, but it's not a ride. You're standing on a platform with a gun that is far too heavy for what it is.
Yep.
And they say, you know, it's suitable for any age so long as you can stand, but try giving that gun to like a 5-year-old or something.
Yeah.
You know, like he's not going to be able to hold it. So I see the rides that they've developed in Beijing, and then I see Minion Blast, and I'm like, come on, guys, you could have done so much more.
Yeah.
With what technology you had, with the brains that you had, that people were putting into Beijing.
Right? You're literally doing this somewhere else. So like,
I
totally get it. Was there kind of like, oh god, go on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So yeah, Jurassic World Adventure would be my favorite. It's one of my favorite rides in the world now, to be honest. So
good shout. And what was your kind of hidden gem then? Was there something that you didn't expect to be like necessarily that good or anything like that, and then it ended up being exceptional?
Yeah, I think that would be the Kung Fu Panda boat ride.
Yeah,
and I think it's just because, like, I love a little boat ride. Right, it gives me 10 minutes to sit down, chill, in AC or in heat, whatever, you know, whatever the weather is outside. I want to be in the opposite inside. Right, it was cute. It had animatronics. It had screens. It had a little drop. It was just cute because Universal don't do boat rides. Right, you've got Jurassic Park River Adventure, but Jurassic Park River Adventure is built for thrills.
Yeah,
with that drop, and you're building and building and building to that drop at the end of River Adventure. Whereas this, it has a couple of little drops, like I think Pirates in Magic Kingdom level drops, you know, the small ones, but it's much more about the scenery and just experiencing the story of the ride, which is something Disney do so well that Universal have never done well.
Yeah,
and this is their first like proper foray into that little boat ride, and I think it's a very good first step. I think it could be improved, of course, But yeah, it's a cute ride, and I'd say it's definitely underrated, because I think you're going to get a lot of people that are going to go to the roller coasters, a lot of people going to go to the e-ticket, Forbidden Journey or something like that. But yeah, fantastic
Cool.
little.
And I suppose from that then to most overrated, was there stuff in the park that you found had just like silly long queues and like everyone's trying to get on it, but you're like a bit underwhelmed by it?
That's a tricky one, because there are a fair amount of clones in the park. That's something that Universal is kind of bad with. They clone a lot of their rides. Despicable Me's in every park, Forbidden Journey's in every park. But Forbidden Journey would be that ride for me. But I don't know if that's because I've ridden it before and I'm just tired of it. And if I was to go back and ride it again, like from, Fight Club style, you want to see a film for the first time. You want to ride a ride for the first time and experience it like you've never done. Maybe Forbidden Journey would be that for me.
Yeah.
Early entry, everybody's racing to the Wizarding World to ride Forbidden Journey.
Yeah.
And Becky and I are like, we've ridden this so many times. We want to go to Jurassic World, So I think it is overrated, but it is a good ride.
Yeah. I know it gets a bit of stick, doesn't it? But because it makes people motion sick. But like the ride itself fundamentally, and like the technology it uses is still fantastic. I mean, they're literally using that technology in Epic Universe.
Yeah. We said about the Monsters Unchained in Dark Universe. It's going to be the same ride technology, but just improved,
and a lot more live props opposed to the screens that make people feel sick.
Yeah. It is a fantastic ride. Don't get me wrong, and it is amazing technology. The story's great. I think they need to update the screens on it for sure in islands to make them a little bit more clear, so you can. Yeah, it's a little bit blurry at this point. It's been 12 years or so. We've got 4K, we've got 8K now, so maybe they could upgrade it to that. But it's here because it still commands the queues, because people still love it, right? And if they didn't, it wouldn't be here. Yeah,
exactly. And I suppose going from most overrated then to best show. And I've got a feeling I know, because I've watched your video. But what was your favorite show in this park?
Well, if you know, then yeah, it is Untrainable.
Yeah,
Untrainable, the How to Train Your Dragon show. Is that what you were going to say?
It is, and honestly, this excites me a lot, because, and I don't know, you'll know better than I, but are we getting literally this show at Epic Universe?
We are. We're going to get it beat for beat, but in English, thankfully, because I didn't understand a word of what they were saying.
No idea what was going on, but I loved it.
I was watching it like, yeah, this is great. Not a clue. Yeah, it is. I cannot begin to describe the feeling that show gave me. I've not really seen anything like it from Universal in a while. I mean, Born Stuntacular, that gets a bad rep, but I enjoy the show, and I remember watching Born Stuntacular for the first time, and I came out like, wow, that was really cool.
Yeah.
But this show, there's a certain part in it that I'm going to spoil my video now, where Toothless flies over the audience with Hiccup flying on the back of Toothless, and it is just unreal to see Toothless full size flying over the audience. Absolutely fantastic. They've got stunts going on in there. The music hits. You've got life-size dragons. It just really works well, and I'm so excited to be able to experience it at Epic Universe and understand it, because again, I could sit and watch that show over and over again. The good thing about Epic is it's going to fit into a land. It doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, it was a bit random.
It does, because it's kind of like just off of Hollywood in like the what is it, the Chinese theater facade basically is the same as Disney's Hollywood Studios with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and that's the kind of building that it's in. So for it to be in Epic Universe and actually be in a How to Train Your Dragon land is going to be absolutely incredible. And this show, like, I'm so happy that they're bringing it to the US.
Yeah, because very, very excited. Very excited. And I think, like you've said, that Universal doing shows hasn't necessarily been their thing. and whether or not it's not been their thing, but they haven't done it well and haven't done it enough. And for them to have this show that looks stunning in this park in Beijing, and for them to go, you know what, we know how good this is, and we've nailed it, and we're going to bring it to Orlando. That excites me big time, big time. And like you said, to have it in a land as well, dedicated to this, it will be fantastic. What was your favorite restaurant at this part then?
Restaurant, we didn't really do many restaurants, unfortunately. Just like I touched on before, you know, we had 2 days, and it was kind of ride the rides, watch the shows, watch the parade. You know, they got a great parade here.
Flat out trying to get it all day.
So we're really trying it. We had lunch in the hotel, in the Grand Hotel, because it's like, you know, 2-minute walk down a set of stairs to get to the park, back up that set of stairs, and you're in the hotel. And the food in there was fantastic. But we got snacks in and around the park. We had a cool snack that was like a velociraptor's footprint in the mud.
Yeah.
We had some amazing ice creams, you know, those kind of things. It was a very snacky day rather than sitting down having a restaurant. And that's why I think having an extra day in the park would have been nice, to be able to go and experience a couple of those restaurants.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a restaurant called Hammond's, which is
Jurassic.
Yeah. Dr. Hammond, whatever his name is, John Hammond, isn't it?
Yeah.
Themed to him, and I've heard it's one of the best theme park restaurants going. So I would love to experience that, and we will if we get back there. I'll be in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. I love it. And I asked this question for the previous Disneyland Paris episodes, but I wanted to ask it for this episode to yourself for Universal Studios Beijing. And it is, if there was one ride you could take from Beijing and give to Orlando, what would it be and why?
I think it would be Jurassic World Adventure.
Yeah.
But in doing that, we'd have to change the whole land to Jurassic World. So I think that changes River Adventure as well. Jurassic World Adventure, yeah, it's just Universal's technology there is unreal.
There's something else.
Yeah, I'd definitely bring that one beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, nice. And to do the flip then, if there was something from Orlando that you're like, this park could do with this, what do you reckon it would be and why then?
Hagrid's.
Yeah. Hagrid's over Velocicoaster as well.
Hagrid's over Velocicoaster, yeah. I think the Wizarding World is missing something there. And I've experienced the Wizarding World around the world now, and every time I go, like I'll go to Hollywood and I'll be like, it's missing something. You know, Japan recently, it was missing something, and those videos are going to come out on the channel for Japan, so you can see what that looks like. But Hagrid's just completes Hogsmeade.
Yeah, definitely,
and it works really well. I'd love to see it kind of expanded slightly with a little bit of a longer track, so they can put an extra ride vehicle on there. So, you know, Hagrid's at the moment, it's always 120-minute wait. Something stupid like that in Orlando. Even at opening, there's reasons it's like that during opening for maintenance reasons, but that would complete Universal Studios Beijing with Wizarding World area. I think they've got space for it as well. I think it's part of an expansion pad. So yeah, hopefully, you know, I'd like to see where this park is in 5 years. 10 years time.
I suppose it kind of leads me on. I was just gonna see kind of how do you see the future of this part then, and like, is there stuff that you want to see added or changed or updated, you know, which might seem mad for a fairly new part, but what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, so looking at some, I've researched this once I came back, and they've got the master plan out there to build another theme park there.
Nice.
Got the master plan to build a water park. There's expansion pads galore around this park. So the Wizarding World has a large expansion pad. Minion Land has a large expansion pad. I think Transformers does as well. And I think, you know, just watching the park grow and Universal use their technology and how they've built Epic, you know, I think Epic's going to be really telling for all of us when we walk in there and say, Christ, like Monsters Unchained, Battle for the Ministry, you know, those kind of rides, they're going to be absolutely insane. And I can really see them bringing those there. What I do think will be the first big expansion will be Super Nintendo World, because, you know, like we touched on, Universal has a habit of like cloning rides everywhere and cloning.
Yeah, that seems to be the one as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
And they've got the space to put Super Nintendo World there, so I think that'll be the next one that they go for. I don't know how well it'll be. I don't know how Super Nintendo translates to the Chinese audience, but I think that's going to be the next expansion that they do.
Yeah, nice, cool. Do you see yourself going back to this park soon? I appreciate you've only gone this year, and I appreciate it's a very big trip as well. So, like, cost-wise,
it's tricky. Yeah, I mean, I don't see it for a few years.
Yeah.
You know, I think, like I said, I think I want to see this park grow over the next 5 to 10 years to really make a judgment call on it. Then I love the park, and I love Shanghai Disneyland in the same trip. And I think if you're doing Shanghai Disneyland, there's a lot of people that are thinking, well, Universal Studios Beijing, let's miss it. But it's 3 hours on the train, you know, it's £100 on the train. You can fly in 2 hours. It's directly linked on their subway system.
Nice.
Like, it's so easy to get to it. It's so cheap.
Yeah.
I want to go back, and I will go back, but it will be a few years.
Yeah. Nice. Good shout. I think that rounds us off then. I think that rounds up nicely. I've asked you a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You've gone to a lot of detail as well. So I really, really do appreciate it. And genuinely, like, the thing that piqued my interest in this park is watching your videos. So as a testament to yourself for doing so many theme parks around the world as well, and like bringing such brilliant content, like for anyone who wants to see parks outside of Orlando, but you know, obviously Orlando as well, but like other parks, other Disney parks, other Universal parks, go and check out Leigh's channel, A Brit Travels, because it is absolutely spot on, genuinely. So this was the episode with Leigh from A Brit Travels. I hope that you all enjoyed this episode where we went into Universal Studios Beijing. I found it so interesting to speak to Leigh to find out all about this park that we have so many familiarities with regards to Orlando, but looking at it from a different point of view on the other side of the world. So for anyone who enjoyed listening to this, please do go and check out Leigh's channel at A Brit Travels, and I will speak to you all in the next one.